piece sonnet and all that, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, and just so you know, I don't think I'm nearly as well versed in this as you are, but in research for the book, I did explore a lot of this, and it's sort of part of the background of Marsha Moore's story.
Yeah.
So
Dude,
He's not well versed.
Stuff.
Yeah, I'm not well versed at all either. A lot of it's over my head. I'm just, trying to wrap my head around it and grasp it.
Yeah.
It seems like it's just a constant learning thing, all this stuff,
Yeah, it gets pretty deep.
Yeah. Right on. So I'll bring you in just as, how do I pronounce your last name? Disomma? Is that okay?
Disomma, yeah.
Yep. And then we'll do like a little bio in our intro later on when it comes out as a podcast. So right on. So
whoops, that was crazy. It's almost like you think we know what we were doing after 500 podcasts. Not a fucking chance. All right, I'm ready. Oh wait, I didn't hit record that. Okay.
All right, Joseph Disomma, welcome to Grimerica. We're going to chat about your book, Dematerialized. Fascinating story. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and we can talk about whatever you want. I mean, it doesn't have to be about the book, but I know, we should talk about the book.
Yeah, wherever it takes us.
Yeah.
A book and wherever it goes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I found it a pretty fascinating story. I'm not really into true crime that much, but this was so different. This wasn't, I don't think this is like your average true crime, book. It was kind of like, you guys stumbled upon this, and it has this real metaphysical, theosophical, spiritual aspect to it. So, yeah, I mean, maybe we could, where do you want to start? Do you want to start with how that whole thing came about, or?
Yeah, so, it delves into a lot of metaphysical disciplines. And what we found when we started researching the book was that became sort of such an important element. It was like inextricable from Marsha Moore's story and what happened to her. So we realized we had to go way back. And how we started this project was that my wife, Marina, she inherited some of Marsha Moore's books. So she inherited them from her grandmother. And, then we were kind of just doing our thing as a couple, starting our lives, starting a family. And she wanted to pursue a career in criminal justice. So we used to go to the library. We lived in Huntington Beach, California. And there's this great library there. It's a really, really peaceful setting. And I go to my section, I go read history and sports, what have you. And she'd do true crime. So she read every true crime book that was in our library. She started from A to Z. And when she got down to Ann Rule, who is a famous true crime author, or most people are familiar with, she had read every book from Ann Rule, and all that was left for her was like these short story volumes, which were just shorter stories or unfinished works. And in one of those volumes, there was this story called The Lost Lady about the mysterious disappearance of Marsha Moore, her story when she vanished. And there was just something about it really struck a chord with my wife. At that time, she wanted to become a dispatcher. But there was something about this case that really, really grabbed her. It was like, she couldn't let it go. It just stayed with her. So she began researching it little by little. And originally we were just, she was thinking of maybe even just writing a screenplay or something like that, because she lived such an interesting life and a colorful life. And then there's sort of the story about her disappearance. But what ended up happening was we got connected with the lieutenant who worked the case back in 1979, and we started gathering materials and sources slowly but surely. And it eventually evolved to a place where we realized that we had certain materials that nobody in the world had, and that, we could actually piece this all together and see if there was something more to the story beyond what you would read about publicly about Marsha Moore and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. So that's really where it all started.
So did she realize that she had inherited those same books at that time when she found that true crime stuff in the library?
Yeah, it just hit her like, oh my God, these are the books that that she grabbed from her grandmother. And then she eventually learned about the final book she wrote, Journeys into the Bright World, which was about Marsha Moore's experimentation with a psychedelic drug called ketamine.
Yeah.
So, that in and of itself was just, if you know anything about the book, it's really vivid, and there's a lot of vivid imagery in it about experimenting with this psychedelic drug.
Yeah. She was taking she was taking horse drugs before they were cool.
I know. Yeah. She was before it became all the
rage.
all the rave or all the rage, whatever one you want to go with. So ketamine, just real quick on ketamine. Ketamine is an anesthetic. So in large doses, it will put people under for surgery. And it's actually a pretty benign anesthetic because it doesn't like slow heart rate or restrict breathing. Some anesthetics are really potent. So there's a risk of death just from the anesthesia itself. But ketamine is a much safer anesthetic. So it's actually used on children and, animals and things like that. In smaller doses, say less than 100 milligrams, you can remain conscious, but some people experience really vivid psychedelic hallucinations. The reactions vary. So some people it doesn't quite cause as much of an effect, but for Marsha Moore, it certainly did. And her last book, Journeys into the Bright World, was her documentation experimenting with this drug.
I got right up to the fucking edge of that shit once, man. I remember my buddy Paul. Shout out to Paul. I don't think he listens to this show. I don't know what he's up to these days. Maybe he does. Anyway, I was in college for welding. I failed out of college for welding. I said I'd never make it as a welder. They were right. No, I did all right. I did all right as a welder. I did. Anyway, my buddy Paul picked me up and we were heading from Guelph, Ontario to Haliburton, Ontario, which I can't remember. It must have been like a 4.5 hour drive or something. But we're like halfway. And it's like, I don't know if you've ever been to Southern Ontario, but you're never like really outside of the cities. It's just like, for a lot of it anyway, it's like one big rural sort of area from city to city to lights to lights. It might have been Hamilton. We're on the outskirts of. We got the bright idea that he's got this ketamine. We'll sniff a little ketamine and, it'll spruce up the drive because we're out of weed. If weed was legal, it could have kept me out of all sorts of trouble. But we're out of weed, so like, okay. So I've never done it before. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I remember we pulled into this closed sort of gas station and we sniffed it and we went to start driving up. I remember it was like a huge hill and there was all these lights. And we're driving up the hill. And
were you driving or
no, I wasn't. Okay. He was driving. And like for some reason we both just sort of like burst out fucking like laughing into like craziness. And it was just like too much. And it's like probably like the middle of the night down in Southern Ontario on some big like 6-lane highway, but it's like completely deserted and it's just the funniest fucking shit in the world to us. Anyway, we had to like pull off the highway into this little tuck thing where there's some little woods we can hide out in because it was the funniest thing in the world. And then it sort of like started to turn into not the funniest thing in the world, into the like this more like terrifying sort of not a good time. I never did ketamine ever again the rest of my life.
It started kind of funny, but then it took a
turn. It took a turn.
What,
I mean, I wasn't
like, paranoid,
paranoid, sort of not a good time. I mean, I used to get
Did you have the dissociative effect of like leaving your body?
I was like on the edge of it. So that was probably where my uncomfort was. And it was very much at a time when I was in party mode. I was not interested in like that being a possibility. And at that time, whenever I was doing acid and stuff like that, you would sort of have that effect. It would have its very like funny, euphoric moments, but then the introspective bits of it are a bad trip because you're not like looking for that at that time. When you get older, you know how to handle that shit. You realize that's what it's all about. You sort of utilize that, but when you're fucking 18 years old, that's not what I signed up for. So
So some people have. I've heard I think it's called the K-hole, which is the experience.
That's very much what it felt like. The K-hole. Yeah, that's what my buddy called it.
Did he?
Where you just have this experience of I didn't just call you something. It's just
no. That's exactly what he said. He's like, we were in the K-hole, bro. We made it back to his place, and he was doing that shit again the next night. I remember it was like people were doing their bumps, and I was just like, no, thank you. I'm fucking.
You know what's happening now is that it's becoming popular in like the Malibu area here in California. Where people are doing it a lot as a, sort of a gentler antidepressant. So that's
like, are they microdosing it kind of, or?
Yeah, I don't know what the dose levels are. I just know it's becoming, and there's even like, I think they're trying to develop, one of the big pharmaceutical companies is trying to develop, or maybe they have already, something called S-ketamine, which is like a nasal spray. Yeah, that's ketamine. It's a ketamine derivative or something. So
wow, I mean, it is. I mean, they're doing it with MDMA and psilocybin too, and all kinds of. So I mean, it's great if that'll help people. That's fantastic. So what's the K-hole then? How did they describe it?
Like an experience of falling without. Like, keep falling and you just keep going. Like I guess there's some kind of phenomenon like that. I don't know. I've never.
It was very much a sense of like purposelessness, and like we're just gonna that's good. It was tragic in a way. I mean, it was a very tragic experience.
It's interesting how some people get, I mean, because Marsha was quite addicted. I don't know if I shouldn't use the word addicted, I don't know, but she seemed to do it quite a bit.
You can, people have. I think it's just the best thing to do is be clear about it. So ketamine as a drug is a Schedule 3, or at least it was when she was experimenting with it, a Schedule 3 non-narcotic. So in terms of chemical dependency, it's not addictive in that way. So nothing close to heroin or anything like that. So it's not that. However, there's, some people say that you can get psychologically addicted to it, but I think that applies to most things. I mean, people say that about pot and everything else.
I'm addicted to weed.
You are?
Straight up. Oh yeah, I'm high right now.
I did that in my younger days, but I could never shake the paranoia from it. I just couldn't. I don't know. That's how it impacted me, but I don't know. Maybe you got to do it for a lot longer than I did.
Yeah, he's built up quite a tolerance.
Yeah.
I still get paranoid sometimes. I was at the border just on Sunday pretty stoned, and it started going south, and I was a little paranoid for a minute. But I didn't have any drugs on me, so I had thrown them in the garbage.
Just to be clear, though. Just to be clear, though, are we talking about the Canadian border? Or
Well, both. Both.
No, the Canadian side.
Canadian
or the
border,
Canadian U.S., Yeah.
I think we
lost you.
We might have lost you.
Okay.
Oh, you're back.
You're back, but we lost you for a bit there.
We're in glitch mode.
Actually, we're in glitch mode right now. Hopefully it comes back.
I think it'll come back. Yeah, no more ketamine for this guy. I mean, we got a line on lab growing fucking psilocybin mushrooms. Why would we ever need anything else? It's fantastic. Shout out to the guys while we're in our little brief intermittence here, to the guys over at check out the links in the show notes if you're in Canada for all your psilocybin needs. Teach you to grow your own. You can microdose. You could just order some shrooms, whatever you want to do.
Sporeslab.io.
Sporeslab.io. You can also check it out. I'm almost ready to go back.
Bingo bango, we're out.
And that's it.
Wow.
You think he's gonna come back? He'll be back.
Yeah, he'll be back.
He'll be back.
Yeah, the spores that we should have Jeff on again.
We should. Jeff's great.
Yeah.
I just talked to him the other day.
Oh, did you? How's everything going?
I think pretty good. Which is good because he's like in that part of BC that would be fucked. But I get the sense he's pretty prepared, So he's
with the disasters. And stuff,
he's probably like, fuck yeah, bring it on. That's what I mean. He didn't even mention it when I talked to him. So,
again, just to summarize here, we're talking about this book. We're talking about Marsha Moore. It's The Mysterious Disappearance of Marsha Moore, Dematerialized, and she was like a kind of an esoteric, theosophical author, spiritualist, experimenting a lot with ketamine, kind of from a rich family, actually. So quite well known, but she was on sort of TV. Like, I'm surprised she's not more well known, actually.
Who?
Than this lady that disappeared.
Oh, yeah, I've never heard of her before.
Yeah. She's got lots of books. She wanted to be a famous writer. She was on TV all the time. She was doing the circuit, talking and stuff. I think this was through the
I don't know if I'd want to go on
psychedelic
TV.
age. I know.
What if they like called you up tomorrow? They're like, "Hey, Mr. Dunlop, will you come on the CBC to an interview about Grimerica?"
Imagine that.
I'd have to turn it down.
Yeah, I'd have to turn it down.
What if they wanted to interview me about my book? I feel like I'd have to just turn it down.
Yeah, yeah. You can't, because they're gonna just hack it up and make it the way they want.
And make me look alt-right. It wouldn't be hard. I mean, shit. You could take some of my there we go. You could take some of my late 2015, early 2016 stuff and cut something right up.
You need the right to be forgotten.
What?
The right to be forgotten. Delete all your stuff.
Dead name me. I'll
Hey guys.
back on the DMT
Hey,
soon.
there we go.
Sorry, guys.
That's
It's okay. You were freezing up a little bit, and then you dropped. So.
Yeah, I hope it's not my internet provider. They've been working on our street.
Oh boy.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Sons of
Sorry.
bitches.
That's okay.
Hey, you guys.
No worries. So so Darren was just talking about his paranoia over the border.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
I don't get paranoid smoking weed. I don't give a fuck.
Oh.
I'm lucky that way. I got it all out of my system in high school.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
So when Marsha was like in her ketamine well, I mean, I guess it was directly previous to her disappearance, but was this during the 60s and when the whole psychedelic sort of revolution was going on? Or did it overlap with that time at all? Or I felt like it was before that, but then I was thinking maybe it was after that.
It was after. So her focus for most of her life was just the whole spectrum of metaphysics, covering astrology, yoga, theosophy, spiritualism, extraterrestrials. She was a big fan of Carl Jung, all of that. I mean, that was her focus. In 1976 is when she first tried ketamine.
Oh, it was that late. Okay, yeah.
It was that late. Yeah, it was that late. I think, in my opinion, she had crossed paths with Timothy Leary. Yeah, and when he did his experimentation with LSD, I think it had an influence on her. I think that carried with her because he generated such nationwide buzz over his experimentation with LSD. And the thing about Marsha was, she really wanted to make a name for herself, set herself apart in metaphysics. And when she tried ketamine in 1976, prior to that, she had tried a bunch of different drugs. So she tried everything from weed to morning glory seeds to LSD to mescaline. None of that stuff really gave her the consciousness expansion.
Well, I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the internet service provider.
Yeah, probably.
Son of a bitch. Maybe we could
try audio only for a bit.
Or try a cell phone call.
Yeah, that might work.
Dun, dun, dun,
yeah, we could do Zoom on the cell phone. Yeah,
we could try that.
Yeah.
Do you have email? Can you email him right now?
Yeah.
I don't think he's coming back.
I don't think I have his email.
What?
No, I think I've been going through his PR people.
What? They didn't give you his email or nothing in case of emergency?
No.
What?
I'll try. So, with that link, do we need a new link? Do I need to send a new link or?
No. If he can get it to his phone and he can click it on his phone.
If he has a Zoom app, though, right? He can't call in on that, right? He needs the Zoom app, right?
He needs no, I don't think he did. He could call in or something. I think he just he's back already. He's a pro. Do you think we should try shutting off the video? You think that'll help?
We can try a couple things, Joseph. You can try your phone if you want to use cell data. That would be easy enough. You can either call in, or if you have a Zoom, if you have a Zoom app, you could do it on your phone. Or you could try.
You are muted. Yeah, you're also muted.
Yeah, or you could just try video off and see. Audio only sometimes helps quite a bit.
Why don't I try myself? Does
Sure.
that come in okay for you guys? Okay.
Yeah.
So what number?
Yeah, I don't know. I think he needs a different invite. Unless you have a Zoom. Do you have a Zoom app on your phone?
Oh, you meant through Zoom. Yeah, I used it on my phone.
Well, or we can give you, I think Darren can pull up the phone number you can dial in too, right, Darren?
Yes, I
Yeah,
can. I
yeah,
think if
we
I
can-
just
we can-
click on this.
Yeah,
I
we'll
might
try and
even be
give
able
you,
to, like, message it to you right through Zoom.
Yeah,
here.
we'll put it in the chat in Zoom here, and then you should be able to call in from that.
Hopefully none of the smart asses on the live stream think it's funny to
I think it's the invitation, yeah.
to call the number. You motherfuckers. Not funny. Don't call the number. I think that'll
Yeah,
give
that's
you
the
a
one.
number.
Yeah, that should give you some phone numbers there too. So.
Did it go through?
No, there you go. Yeah.
Oh, wait. Okay. Okay. So. Okay.
Don't say it out.
Let me try that. Okay.
All right.
Yeah. 555-5555.
555-555-556.
Just like the movies. Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
And then I'm not sure how we answer that. Does it just pop up as a phone in there? I can't remember. It's been a while since we've done that.
You spend most of your life in Zoom. You think you'd know.
Not entered any numbers. Please re-enter your meeting ID followed by pound.
Oh, okay.
You, I mean, between what are you, D&D in 2 nights a week?
It depends. One, sometimes two. Yeah. I'm running a game. I'm trying to finish off that game I was
Are you gonna
designing.
Are you gonna join jiu-jitsu with me?
There are two participants in the meeting.
We could like
There we go.
fight each
Okay,
other.
so yeah,
we could
just
literally fight each
just
other.
mute that guy
every week, a couple of days a week.
Okay, there he is.
All right. Huh.
There's a sign in the top corner, I think, of your. It'll say to turn off the.
Turn off what? Oh, it helped. It's done. It's
yeah,
fixed.
Yeah, there we go.
Can we still hear you? Hello?
You might have to unmute. Yeah, there you go.
Hello?
Can you hear me?
Who's that?
Can you hear me?
I can't.
Yeah.
Oh, perfect. We got you.
You got me?
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
I don't see you guys, but that's okay.
Yeah, you won't unless you have the Zoom app on your
We
phone.
can't
but
see
this
you
is-
either, but
we
we're
can't see-
here.
We actually have a nice frozen
Okay.
shot of you on the screen, so
Awesome.
we'll just
Great.
look at that and pretend you're talking there.
All right, cool. Sorry about that, you guys. I
No,
don't
that's
know.
okay. No problem.
Yeah.
No worries. We should actually have something a little, ready for that, just in case it happens. But so yeah, so where were we? We were with I think you were talking about Marsha and all her different experiences, and ketamine was the
Yeah.
only one that gave her that sort of extended consciousness sort of feeling or whatever.
Yeah, so just to reset that real quick. So he first tried ketamine in April 1976. So really her interest before that, her focus before that was just the whole spectrum of metaphysics, from astrology to yoga, reincarnation, spiritualism, theosophy, all of that. In 1976, she tried ketamine, and I think what had influenced her, in my opinion, was that she had crossed paths with Timothy Leary at one point, and she was obviously, greatly impacted by his influence with his experimentation with LSD and the nationwide buzz it caused back in the 60s. Before she tried ketamine, she tried multiple drugs, from morning glory seeds to weed to mescaline, and she tried LSD too. But she had a very scary experience with LSD, which she documents in Journeys into the Bright World. When she tried ketamine, that was the one. She had a very vivid experience with it from the first time she tried it, and she felt like it was the thing that was really going to expand her consciousness. So she had a very vivid first trip. And when she took it, when people take ketamine, there's a lot of psychedelic imagery that usually comes along with it. But for her, it was much more than that. It was much more profound than that. For her, it was a gateway. It was a gateway to other worlds. It was a gateway to past lives. It was a gateway to communication with supernatural entities or ETs. It was a gateway to alternate dimensions, alternate realms. So it was like, for her, it was this wonder drug. It was everything that she was looking for. And it was also a way for her to do a new project that would allow her to set herself apart and make a name for herself. And that was always her lifelong ambition. Her driving goal was to make a name for herself amongst the metaphysical community with something new. And so what happened was, she tried it in 1976. In 1977, she meets a man named Howard Altunian. And this is while she's on a lecture tour across the U.S. and in Canada. And he was, at the time, he was living in a Seattle suburb, so this is the area that this all takes place. When he met her, he fell head over heels in love with her. And what happened was, they had a quick courtship, and they were married soon thereafter. And for Marsha, it was like this sign of predestiny. She believed in, she was a student of astrology, so she believed in, the stars aligning and predestined occurrences. And when she met Howard, he happened to be an anesthesiologist. She had just tried ketamine, and so to her, it was like meant to be. It was like this perfect fit. So they got married shortly thereafter, and what they started doing was collaborating on a book, and that book became Journeys into the Bright World, which documents their experimentation with ketamine and talks a little bit about what they were doing in their lives up until that point.
And was that her fourth husband?
That was her fourth husband. She had been married, so she had been married 3 times before that. And one of the things the book covers, so all of the New Age stuff, all the metaphysics, and the ketamine experimentation, it's all very, very interesting and colorful, and there's a lot of interesting aspects to it. But it also covers her life. It's part biographical, and one of the things that it shows in the book is that she was blinded by ambition. So she had 3 failed marriages, in part because her North Star was always the occult. It was always metaphysics. It was always that study. And a lot of things in her life went by the wayside as she fed that obsession. And so, she had her first marriage and she had 3 children. But then after that, the second marriage was very short-lived. It was to an astrologer named Louis Acker. And he was much younger than Marsha. He was about almost 10 years younger. Then she had another marriage, which ended up being very tumultuous and very abusive. And, she kind of got her clock clean financially. And so there's all this like baggage and litter in her life as she sort of was just consumed by pursuing this career in metaphysics. And Howard was the 4th husband that she married before she disappeared. So what happened was, just to set the table here, they wrote the book, they finished the book and published it in the fall of 1978. And they were done with the book, and leading up to 1979, she was scheduled to take a trip from, where they lived, which was Linwood, Washington, which is a suburb of Seattle. And they were going to drive down to Pasadena for a festival that was, like metaphysical festival. And she was going to give a prepared speech at a conference on past life regression at that festival. And this was going to take place in January 1979. And right before they were set to leave for that trip for that conference, literally on the eve of leaving for that conference, she disappeared into thin air. She vanished in the thin air, and there was like almost no trace of her. So that's really what happened. That's the mystery.
Yeah, and the weird thing about some of that is that, like, she thought that her husbands in the previous marriages were from past lives as well. Like she seemed to kind of keep gravitating towards that. Oh, like, hey, this is another past life thing, another past life thing. And the weird thing for me that with somebody studying so much metaphysics and the occult and meditation and yoga, I mean, she was seriously into it. I mean, she's doing handstands on the table and in the TV studio. And I mean, she was teaching yoga for people, I think for free at one point. I mean, she was pretty deep into it. You think she'd have some discernment over, like it seems odd to me that she would be so, her lust for fame would be so much. Because I mean, a lot of people I know in that sort of environment, that's the opposite of what they want, Did you find that strange when you were researching it all?
Yeah, I actually found it to be a cautionary tale when you think about it, because I had to research all of this, all of these disciplines, astrology, past life regression, psychism, and all these things. And one of the things I took away from it was that there's a real risk of confirmation bias there. So, you have to be too careful. I mean, you have to be careful. There's always this temptation to ascribe more weight to something than may actually be there. So to give you an example, her second marriage to Louis Acker, there's a book that was written in the 1960s called Yoga, Youth, and Reincarnation. And that was about Marsha Moore's yoga, teaching yoga and integrating yoga into your life. But in that book, they talk about her marriage to Louis, and she based that marriage predominantly on their compatible astrological charts. Well, that marriage only lasted a couple of years, and then when she met Mark Douglas, she was contending that they had known each other in a past life. Same by the time she got to Howard, she actually was saying that this out there stuff that they enjoyed a past life together in Sherwood Forest during like the Robin Hood days, or when that whole time in England. And and given the fact that he was, like I said, given the fact that he was an anesthesiologist and she had just tried ketamine, it's like there's all these things that she would kind of grab onto, say that this is meant to be, this is the next thing for me, this is a sign, and it just ended, it ended up, there's all these kind of tragic twists and turns throughout her life, in part because she was putting all this weight on some of those things,
Yeah, I mean, it makes me think of like reading some of theosophy books, like Blavatsky's stuff, how they warn people. Like she warns people even about yoga and meditation and past life stuff, like even just these basic things that nowadays we think of as just super healthy and normal. Like they warn them that you shouldn't be doing that unless you're kind of initiated, or unless you go through this learning process, this huge learning process. So it makes me wonder, like, this is like you said, a cautionary tale of maybe dipping too deep into it and wanting too much out of that or something.
And I think you could actually say that it's really that she went after such a breadth of metaphysics instead of a depth of it. So she didn't pick one discipline and say, like, I'm going to see this one through to the end, like whether it was theosophy or astrology or yoga. She was like, some people described her as a walking encyclopedia because she knew a little bit about everything. But there was some criticism that she never attained the deep, profound knowledge of any one discipline, that she was just trying all these different things, throwing things up the wall to see what would stick, with the one, to see what would allow her to make a name for herself. So there was some criticism there too. And then the research of, all these different disciplines, I mean, my head was spinning. I mean, trying to learn the distinctions between, there's theosophy, and then there was like sort of Alice Bailey had built upon that. Before theosophy, there was spiritualism. So theosophy had sort of built on spiritualism. And then you sort of get into, everything that came after that, from, some of the psychologists that were adding elements to it. And then people like John Lilly and Timothy Leary, who were then experimenting with drugs and putting that in there. So, it's just, there's so much to it. I mean, it really opened my eyes and sort of expanded my horizons as to how much there is out there to learn for metaphysics, you know?
Oh, totally. I mean, did she bump in? I mean, because there's people that think that Leary and Lily, were part of, at least connected with the CIA, maybe operatives, or did she come across any of that, or did she? Because I mean, especially her being, I guess, a beautiful woman. Like, was there any connections there with intelligence agencies that you know of? Because I mean, also coming from a rich family, like, and they were also part of the Lucia Trust back then, right?
Yeah, I hate to give you this answer, but no.
No, that's okay.
So like, yeah, I mean, because people I had talked to about it, and even some of her family members, believe it or not, who did not know much about her, because after she disappeared, it was sort of, I want to say, how do I say this? It was sort of like an embarrassment to the family what had happened to her.
Yeah.
And, I had people asking me like, well, the Lucis Trust, and, was there Satanism involved there? And, was there a CIA angle?
Yeah.
There were mafia rumors. There was like